sleepyheads, get up, get up, get out of bed. Cheer up, the sun is red. Live, love, laugh and be happy. What if
Hello and welcome to this week's Robin Pod Weekly, which is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre, the only car specialist trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Apologies to you guys who were expecting to be watching this live at 8 p.m. on YouTube tonight, which is, of course, Thursday. And apologies to all the listeners and viewers who were expecting to be the Robin Pod to be out earlier this week. I know it's late being out on a Thursday, but hopefully you'll enjoy it like you have all the previous Robin Pods. Due to the change in time, etc., Steve Till is joining me, and I'm forever grateful for him stepping in right at the last minute, because I'm sure Steve had plenty other things that he could be doing. But of course, the most and his favourite thing to talk about is Hull Kingston Rovers. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm all right. Changing circumstances, dead rabbits and all that kind of thing. I won't go into it. Especially after the story you told me before we went on air. But yeah, we are where we are. Steve, the Robins, I mean, they've got a tough game against Lee on Friday night. They had a tough game on Friday against Wigan. And did they come up short, or did the circumstances dictate, go against them?
I don't think they came up that short. I think it was the circumstances. Whatever Wigan fans say, they say they beat us fair and square, which they did. They beat us fair and square according to the rules. But they can't take away the fact that we played 20 minutes with 12 men. And whether you argue about whether we should be able to play 20 minutes with 12 men, whether that should be in our pedigree, our makeup, is another matter. But we played 20 minutes with 12 men, and during those 20 minutes we conceded 4 tries. So I don't think Rovers played that badly. In fact, we were only inches away. I think the score was 10-0. We were literally inches away. If 𝗲𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗀𝗏 could have leapt just that bit higher for the cross kick, we were inches away from 16-0. But instead the ball goes to the Wigan centre, and we had that long run from Wigan, which ended up with Sinbinin against us. So it's the luck of the draw. I think we're still not far off Wigan, which puts us way ahead of a lot of other teams.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked back on it, Steve, and I think we would have got away with one Sinbinin. I think the two yellow cards, 20 minutes against down to 12 against Wigan. It was just too much, and you look, they scored 5 tries, we scored 3 tries. Michael Lewis got 4 kicks, they got 2 kicks. But ultimately, it was been down to 12 minutes. I think we'd have got, if it was just a 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗃 one, I think we'd have got away with it. But when Whitbread went off in the second half, they got a pile on, didn't they? They started creating the gaps. I mean, that Maygo, he came on like a bloody... He got man of the match. He was like a number 7, wasn't he? The way he was passing the ball. It wasn't just that. It was his running as well.
His leg power, yeah. If I was picking man of the match and had to pick a man of the match from the winning team, it would be the guy, Junior and Semba. He had a blinder. But Maygo, if I recall it rightly, there was one point where Lewis is hanging on to one leg and he's still running, But he only played for 14 minutes. That's let's see Maygo play for 40 minutes, let alone 14. It'd be a different story.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back to that yellow card for 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗃, Steve. It was, I mean, credit to the Robins, 12-8 at half time, and deservedly so. And they'd weathered the storm with the 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗃 yellow card. Lots and lots of debate whether it should have been or not. My opinion, I had quite a good view of it. I don't think it should have been. I think the tackle was still there to be made. I think Rovers, though, were a little bit naive in the fact that they should have let him get up to play the ball, because Field had made that much space. The Wigan players couldn't get get up to him. And if they'd let him get up, he'd have played it to nobody.
Yeah, but what do you... I'm going to ask you a question I haven't asked you. Why do you think he was booked? Why do you think
the referee gave it for flopping, didn't he?
That's right. I still look at the local newspaper, and he said it was for laying on. And when I queried it with him, he said, "Oh, I was in the press room," but he wrote that in an opinion piece 2 days later. So whether he's still in the press room 2 days later, I don't know. It was for the flop, and the referee was quite adamant about it. You heard it. I saw it on TV. You heard him say it's a flop, and then he turned round to Minchella and said it's for a flop. So it wasn't holding down because, well, first of all, the ball hadn't hit the ground. The ball carrying arm hadn't hit the ground. So it was free to do what he wanted in actual fact. And had the referee not blown for the flop, he could quite easily have, I don't know how far a teammate was, but just flung the ball behind him in the hope that a teammate was there running on.
Yeah. And to be fair to Burgess, he didn't lay on him. He wasn't like holding him down, and Field was trying to get up. And I think, to be fair, that's the one thing that's been missed out of this. I just mentioned it, that Field knew nobody was behind him. Yeah. And I think that's where Field was smart, almost as if Field didn't want to get up because he knew he had nobody. So it's easy for him to lay down, isn't it? When you've got 2 players on top of you, you know, and you know, I do think that's. I think the Whitbread one, when you look at where we are in the game and what's been given this season, you know, whether you did agree with it or not in terms of the context of rugby league, but with what's been given this season, you know, it's hard for me to argue with it. But the Burgess one, that stung, that one for me.
Well, the match review panel said nothing about Burgess, so that shows how important that was. But the Whitbread one, we've got to feel slightly lucky he hasn't got a bigger ban. But although in saying that, I'm going to mention Paul Vaughan later, but Paul Vaughan of Warrington got sent off against Lee, but he went off on a red card, and he got a 3-match ban. And so, in a sense, we look, but it's what it is. We're lucky we've got Whitbread back next week, and we've just got to accept it. You can't change history, and it's history now. It's gone. So take that away from the game, and I think we've played well. We've given Wigan a lot to worry about, because I'll tell you what, if they think that, you know, if they think back to it when it comes to if fingers crossed we meet them again in the competition, they'll be the more worried team. We'll be going into it with a bit of confidence, and they'll be thinking, wondering what we're going to throw at them next. I'm hearing Wigan fans saying, "Oh, we scored length of the field tries and we did this and we did that." Yeah, you did it against 12 men. And people comparing Mikey Lewis's try with French's. Let's look at Lewis's try. The first try, it was second try, wasn't it? Parcell's try was brilliant. Parcell saw the gap. There was French and Hazard, who, by the way, was the first Wigan player to make a mistake in the match. He knocked Tom early on and looked like a frightened rabbit. We're going on about rabbits again. And then Parcell spotted that gap, went through it, and just reached out and scored a try. It was a great opportunist try. So that put us 4-0 up, kicked 6-0. And then Mikey completely stood Bevan French up when he went over for his try. He made him look an idiot. Yeah. So, you know, then we're 10-0 up, and then you get the kick from Tyrone May, which, had it been a slightly lower, would have made. It
wasn't a great kick though, Steve, was it?
It wasn't a great kick.
What he did is he exposed Rovers, because for me, that kick should have been, I don't know, 5 metres behind the Wigan defenders. So it gives. So I think he's just literally miskicked it, because that should be 5 metres behind the Wigan defence. So then the Rovers players have got the opportunity to run onto it. Wigan turn round, and you know, it's the way sport goes. He just got it wrong, I think.
It's one of those.
It did leave us exposed, isn't it?
Yeah, But, you know, I'll forgive him that for all the other good stuff he does for us. It's just one of those things, you know, people say, oh, we should be, I'm not saying Rovers, their own teams should be beating teams by this, that and the other. What people forget is there is an opposition. You're not walking onto a rugby field on your own and just doing what you like. There is an opposition, and we played the best opposition that the game could offer on that night. And we've given them a hell of a game. We've given them a hell of a fright, you know. For me, it was a great game. It was a great advert for the game. Sky built it up lovely. It was a fantastic advert for the game. And
good crowd as well. Big crowd.
Big crowd. And I'll tell you what, you won't have seen it. As I say, I wasn't there. I'm not able to get to matches at the moment. But to see Matty Pete absolutely screaming at the referee and you know, throwing his paper down, that's how worried Matty Pete was about the game. You know, he knew it was going to be tight, and tight it was.
Yeah, I think I mentioned on the Robin pod last week, Steve, that you knew Wigan were taking it seriously when you saw how many tickets they'd sold for the game.
Absolutely.
So let alone the players, the supporters knew that this was a big game, and they'll know they've gone toe-to-toe with the Robins. And this is why it's frustrating, isn't it? Because if we'd have been there with 13 men for the full game, I do genuinely think the Robins would have won. But, you know, I think that Gary Lineker coined a phrase about the England football team. You play 11v11 for 90 minutes and then Germany win. And at the moment, Rovers seem to be in this, I don't know, this bubble of whenever we play Wigan when it counts, we just can't get over the line. And I genuinely hope this season we're still going to get the opportunity to play them again, because I do think we've got a really big chance to beat them, and I hope it's in the biggest game of all. But Wigan, over the years, when it counts, get over the line, don't they? And I think you just said, Steve, about, you know, you're playing an opposition. When you play Wigan, you're not just playing the team on the pitch, you're playing the history, you're playing the ethos. You know, them players are drilled into them to win at all costs.
Yeah.
You know, and they've got the track record of doing it. You have to go a long way back, unfortunately, for the Robins to have that same mentality, ethos, and hopefully we just need that one trophy to glue it all back together for the Robins, and that'll be us.
Yeah, I agree. But, you know, I think Willie Peters would probably say, yeah, there's history and there's looking back, but it's 13 against 13 normally. Like I said, for 20 minutes, it was 13 against 12. Yeah. And the result is the result. It's gone. It's history. Right. Let's look forward now. And it was a performance from, I didn't see a bad performance from any player. If I had one slight criticism about what happened, it was the Bevan French try on the fifth, because they scored 2 tries on the 5th tackle, did Wigan. The Bevan French one, where the ball had gone to ground and he took it and he brought it inside and then he kicked through. Broadhurst at the back. Broadbent, sorry, at the back. It was going in the wrong direction. Sorry, he was going out towards touch when French took the ball, and French came back inside, and Broadbent, he struggled to get back, and there was that gap a mile wide for French to kick through, and by that time it was a lost cause for the fullback. So that's my only slight criticism. If Evalds had been a fullback, I don't know, would he have covered the position better, because it was a big gap, and French saw it and took it.
It's interesting you mention that, Steve, because all I'll say is I listened to Willie Peters' press conference earlier, and he I think it was questioned about going down to 12 men, and is it something he could have done differently? And he alluded to the fact, I think he said about players taking a breath when they should be getting back into position or getting back into where, you know, covering the defense, whatever. And it seemed like I was going to say, one of the questions I was going to ask you about whether Evalds not playing affected the result. I don't think it did. I don't think Evalds playing would have changed it. Who knows? But I don't think Broadbent let us down. But it was just that one moment with a Bevan French try where we didn't get back into.
It was caught. It was originally it was going in the direction of the ball.
Yeah,
and he didn't think quickly enough to. Well, he maybe thought quickly enough. Maybe French had the quicker thought and the speed of thought and what have you. But it left that huge gap in the middle of under the post, for goodness sake, didn't it? You know, and he took it, did French. In the same way, French for the 𝗪𝗪𝗏 try, all our cover was going over to the left, our left, and French got the ball and suddenly turned to his left, and he made the 𝗪𝗪𝗏 try. All the cover had gone across, left a huge gap again, but we were down to 12 men again.
Yeah,
our umbrella defence didn't quite. It was like an umbrella in the wind when you catch it the wrong way, if you see what I mean. If I can use that analogy, but. Two moments of brilliance from French, and again, when we're looking at man of the match, I've said 𝗪𝗪𝗏, but French had to run in close as well, you know.
Yeah, and to be fair, Willie Peters, you know, he'll be probably pissed off, because he'll look at that and things like that's as good as Bevan French has been to pick out that and spot that. He'll think Rovers could have been better to prevent that. So look. You know, Broadbent playing at fullback. He's not played there that much this season. There's lots of mitigating circumstances, isn't there, to say why he would be caught out of position. It is the game, and to be fair, sometimes you just applaud the play and go, do you know what? Sometimes you do get beat by someone who's a bit smarter or not. But there's been lots of talk, Steve, about obviously the best halfback in the comp, potential Man of Steel winner and stuff. And I still think that Mikey Lewis, for me, is one of the outstanding candidates to get the Man of Steel award. Of course, they're voting now. We can't see it, so we don't know what the scores are. But you look at how many Man of the Match awards he's won over the past 7 games. He must be ranking high with the 3 points. And Bevan French, don't forget as well, has missed a lot of games this season. Mikey Lewis must be within a tremendous shout for Man of Steel this year.
Yeah, I noticed the 𝗀𝗪𝗏 medal, which is run by Rugby League Express. I don't think Mikey would have to get man of the match in the next 2 games, and Sneed not get a point. So they've almost. But I look at that 𝗀𝗪𝗏 medal and I see it week by week, and I think, how the hell have you picked this man for points? You know, as you watch the build up. Hopefully, the Man of Steel judges, and there's some good judges among them, will. Well, I think Mikey's it. I think they'll name 3 nominations, won't they? And Mikey will be one of them. That's a certainty. They name 3 nominations before the event, and then they give you the full result at the event. And I think Mikey's a certainty. It's just one of those things. You know, I'll go back. We talk about French. We talk about what he did. But my abiding memory is Mikey Lewis standing Bevan French up and going over to score that try. That was brilliant.
And to be fair, I think my batting stat of the game is Wigan made 23 missed tackles. The Robins made 55. But when you look at the circumstances around the game, you can see where the 55 come from, can't you? So it's, you know, it's easy to miss a tackle when you're down to 12. But, and I'll know this for sure, Willie Peters won't take that as an excuse.
No.
His attitude will be, we've got to work harder.
Absolutely.
You know, that's not an excuse.
And that's how close we are to Wigan. You know, we're the one team. Can I just mention, we haven't mentioned something yet, but the interception by 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏.
Oh, yeah.
What a magnificent run. And I think to be honest, I think if he'd have taken 3 more steps and dived before he passed the ball, he'd have slid over the line. Yeah. I've watched it a couple of times.
It was great awareness, though, wasn't it? Because what he did is he laid off the perfect pass to Burgess, but he was under pressure as well to do it.
Yeah. Oh no, it was brilliant.
He could have got that wrong. Because Burgess came on, sort of angled his run round him as well. So he had to put I do think
Right.
𝗬𝗂𝗡𝗴𝗏, I've called him as he should be a set for the Super League Dream Team this year. I think he's been absolutely, and there's no way that fullback nonsense at the start of the season should have any influence on him being in the.
I think we saw the two. I think we saw the two centres for the Dream Team play last week. I think who's the Wigan centre? Wardle. I think he's a certainty, and I think he could be the other one.
I tell you what, he puts things on a plate, doesn't he? He puts. Marshall scores tries, but when you look at, he's a finisher. Yeah, he's a finisher of tries, and it's Wardle who's putting him on a plate for him.
I think since he signed from Huddersfield, I think he's been, other than the Rovers play, he's been my favourite centre in the competition.
Yeah. But I don't think he's been any better. You look at some of the tries 𝗬𝗂𝗡𝗏 set up, just with his soft hands, but also what he does, which is fantastic. He makes the defenders question what he's going to do because they know he's strong enough to power himself on the line, or he can just pass it and create a flood. So, I think he's been absolutely fantastic, and he's been a revelation. And for considering a lot of people who don't know rugby league think he's finished, I think he's shown them. Up.
Yeah, I agree. Like I've said before on the programme, I watched him at the back end last season, and I thought, how the hell is he going to be a fullback? And time proved that, didn't it? 3 weeks. I think he had 3 weeks at fullback, and a goal kicker as well. He had a kicking goals.
Yeah. Well, that died a death quickly, didn't it? Thankfully. And to be fair as well, what was impressive about the game against Wigan is Mikey Lewis's willingness to kick as well. Yeah. He got 4 kicks. I think he missed 2. But it's not something that affects him, and I think that's a great quality. How he doesn't let things affect him. And it being I really think Mikey Lewis will start in the. We're going to come on to the England squad selection and Sean Wayne's picks, but I do think he will be a starting player in test games.
I think Mikey, he's got every string to the bow. People like to see Mikey Lewis. I think the casual observer will watch Mikey Lewis and see him scoring tries the way he does, coming off the left foot and, crashing over, making breaks. But you know what I'm more than impressed with is Mikey Lewis's defence. His tackling is outstanding. His willingness to go up against the hardest, the biggest, and wrap himself around the legs and tackle. That to me is the biggest thing that he's got going for him for the future. Yeah.
And although Steve, I do wish he wouldn't put himself up against some of the props like Mago and stuff. I wish he'd just let the second row drift in and take the tack. Rather than him going toe to toe, because it is a feature of the Willie Peters game, isn't it? Defense, everyone defends, but his magic's in attack. That's in rugby league. You can't step out of a tackle, can you? If it's there, you've got to do it. You've got to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, Steve, we've got lots and lots left to talk about, but earlier on this week, I caught up with Keith Pollard for Keith's Corner. Welcome to this week's Robin Pod Weekly. Keith, let's pick up from where we left off last week. What you got for us now?
We're up to 1929, right? And the world was the biggest depression ever. The 29th of October, the stock market crashed in America, wiping billions off the board. And this would become the blackest decade of the century, when the world declared war on Hitler's Germany, in which over 50 million people perished. Sadly, Rovers' fortunes mirrored the clamor of the country, and at their lowest point, they faced a desperate struggle to survive. But one bright note, Rovers beat Hunslet in the Yorkshire Cup final at Headingley 13-7, and Jack Spanner and 𝗔𝗂𝗄𝗃 were outstanding for the Robins. Another great first thing ever, Rovers played the Kangaroos on the 5th of October the same year, with 20,000 people there. Jack Faitham becoming the first Rovers player to earn an international cap. Sadly, the Great Britain team lost 31-8. They then moved to the 1930s. The Depression had already hit the UK Bradley, but no more than the industrial north. Unemployment had risen to around 20%. On the brighter note, a Hull girl, Amy Johnson, was the first woman to fly solo from England to Australia. Arsenal won the 1930 FA Cup final, which was the beginning of their stronghold in football, as the Depression didn't in London and the south as much as the north. In the Rugby League, the competition changed in 1930-31 season, where all 38 clubs, 13 from each county, Yorkshire and Lancashire, they didn't play in Cumberland in them days, played home and away, plus 6 from the other county. Rovers finished 13th that year, the highest position they achieved in the next 29 years. The season high point was a run of 5 consecutive wins, including the Good Friday against 𝘬𝗎𝐻, Good Friday derby against 𝘬𝗎𝐻. We moved to 1931. It still wasn't looking good for Rovers. They could not turn out a regular side. For example, 19 players shared the 2 wing positions. This is in one season. And they talk about having a lot of new players coming in. Among them was Billy Batten Jr., the son of the former Hull FC legend, Billy Batten, obviously. And the club at the time were losing £60 a week. And it could have been a disaster if it hadn't been for the local derby at Christmas, as they would have gone bust. We moved to the next season. Rovers slipped down the tables to 21st, with Hull FC overtaking them despite losing to the Robins in both derbies that year. A home thrashing by Bradford Northern, 54-0 in April, was the highest score at Craven Park for a long, long while. By the end of the season, in March, the club was in dire straits, in debt to the tune of £3,683, and the bank wouldn't lend him any more money. Mr. Brown, the chairman, said he was lucky if they'll see the season out. The players even accepted a flat £2 per game instead of winning or losing money. They got rid of the A team, and the secretary and groundsman's wages were reduced. The weather didn't help. The gate receipts for the local derby at Christmas was £65, compared to Hull FC's gate only 2 weeks before of £650. Rovers lost 388 on the season in June and appealed to the Rugby Football League to bail them out and buy £750 worth of stock that they held. This was granted. The amount received eased any immediate crisis. Leigh, who was still going, but then were not so lucky. They closed the doors and went out of business. Let's talk a bit of decent things going on. Early in 1930, Wakefield Trinity introduced a match payment structure at their club. This meant their captain and halfback, Johnson Parkin, who lost his preferential treatment that he'd enjoyed for the previous 6 seasons, so he must have been on more money than the rest of them. This caused a severe split between him and the board of directors, so much they put him on the transfer list for £100. In those days, that was worth about now £8,200. The sum was relatively low in recognition of his valuable long service to the club, but he wanted to be away, so he immediately paid his own transfer fee and joined Rovers. He was a seasoned international. He'd made 28 representative games. The Robins players agreed that they could pay him more than them. He was 34 years old at the time and the only player ever to tour Australia 3 times. Another player I'd like to mention, who I got to know quite well, Wilf McWatt, who started his career in 1932 and what became a lifelong partnership with the club. He played 328 games, kicking 421 goals and scoring 29 tries. He was captain twice, 36 to 38, and again 45 to 47. Then he became first team coach from 1950 to 52. He then left for a while and came back as reserve team coach in 1957 under Colin Hutton. I actually played for him when I went first to Rovers, and then he left the club in 1963 when Bob Coverdale took over as A-team coach. So that's it for the dark side. Next time we'll move on to, I hope, brighter and better things.
Of course, Steve, Keith's always there to lift the mood. Of course, he's just relaying the message. But I mean, it wasn't the greatest history, was it?
No. Some tough times in those days. Some really tough times.
Yeah. Steve, we've talked about Wigan. Of course, we've had Shaun Wane announce his England squad. We just mentioned about Mikey Lewis. Hopefully playing and starting. I think he will. The other Rovers players named in the squad for the test games at the end of the season are Jez Litton and Elliot Minchella. Some Robin supporters, including myself, though, surprised that maybe Dean Hadley and James Batchelor wasn't included. Of course, we saw 7 players from Wigan named in the squad, which probably won't surprise many. I mean, we saw 37-year-old Chris Hill also named in the squad, someone who Huddersfield are releasing at the end of the season, and some rumour was circulating that he could be signing for Oldham, who've been promoted to the Championship. But Minchella, Jez Litton, Mikey Lewis, great to see them included, and I think it's great reward for them. I think Batchelor would have been a likely one. And Hadley, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think Batchelor may be the more fashionable, and I think Batchelor should have maybe gone in. And why not make it a squad of 32? Why not make it a squad of 40? Because most of them are not even going to attend the training session, are they? I think our 3 will, though, when he whittles it down. So it's great that we've got 3 players. Who'd have thought that 2 years ago, even or 3 years ago, we'd have had any internationals being picked, and not just being picked, but looking certain to be in a squad of 21. Say,
yeah, I mean, it was an initial train-on squad, wasn't it? So it gives Shaun Wane the chance to have a look at some of the players who might not normally be selected. Like you said, maybe it was a chance to extend that squad to include a few more players. We'll see what happens with that. So good luck to them. Of course, there's still lots of Super League action to take place between now and them games. If we look further beyond that, though, Steve, a player who is going to be a Robin in 2025 is Lee Kershaw, who's signed on from the London Broncos, previously featured at Wakefield, was out of the game in pre-season, trained with Leeds Rhinos, and then went on trial at London. They took him on for the season. He's done, by all accounts, in a struggling side pretty well. And he's going to be a Robin in 2025. What might surprise most is he's only 25 years old as well.
Yeah, I've got to say that came right out of the blue for me. If you'd have asked me at the end of last season whether I would have had him in the team, I quite fancied him to as a winger. And then I think he asked Leeds if he could train with them, and they said yes. They didn't take him on. And like you say, he ended up in London. He's been doing it tough with a team that's been getting beaten every week, and he's a guy who will make a good standby player. That's the best I could say. But we definitely need cover for our wingers, and he's good cover for the wing position. So yeah, let's give him a go, and hopefully he can regain some of the form that he showed for Wakefield. But he's played the last 2 years for beaten teams. So let's see what he's like with a successful team. Yeah. Have I lost you, John O? Looks like we've lost John O. So, are you there, Chris? Hello? looks like the line's gone down between myself and John. So I'm going to...
Yeah, you just cut up a little bit, Steve, but you only have to look at some of the Jack Brown and how coming into our setup has helped them improve.
Yeah.
So
let's hope that Lee Kershaw's one that will benefit from our setup. We're having some technical difficulties here. I can see John, but you obviously can't hear me. Are you there?
Yeah, just cut it. Don't worry, Steve. It is literally just cutting up a little bit. I think the whatever people of the Robin Pod, listeners of the Robin Pod, won't be surprised to hear that internet connection is right. We should be back on. So, Steve, what I was saying though is that Lee Kershaw, bearing in mind he's been in a part-time environment, of course, coming with Bill Leyland, who's coming as hooker. That step up to full-time rugby, what he will be, of course, used to after being with Wakefield. At 25 years old, there's still a lot of potential. All you would say is, with the signing of Davis from Catalans, Joe Badge is still being at the club, and of course, Jack Broadbent is utility value. Kershaw is somewhere down the line. I've seen some people, though, on social media comment about, does that not just put players like Conor Barley and Louis Gorman just further down the pecking order? And we're told this academy is producing players, but is it just reducing the opportunities for them to play?
Yeah, it probably is, but, it's up to them. I think Conor Barley's a hell of a player, and he will get his time, but he's got to be. He's obviously not ready as far as 𝗬𝗂𝗧𝗏 is concerned, and the same with some of the other lads you mentioned. They will get their time. Louis Gorman, I'm wondering whether his size is not helping him. I can't see him getting into the team in the Wigan or the winger or centre position. Maybe he'd make a good fullback, but this is in a sense this is what we've wanted. We've wanted Rovers to be successful, and we're doing it the way 𝗬𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏 wants us to be successful. So some of these lads have got to bide the time.
Well, it's cutthroat, isn't it, Steve? At the end of the day, 𝗬𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏 has set a very high bar.
Yeah, well, it's his future as well, isn't it? It's his future. If he's not successful, if the club's not successful, he's not successful. We've seen what happens in the past with coaches. We've had people we think are good coaches, but they've not brought us the kind of hope. Really, we haven't had the success till we win a competition. But we've got more hope under 𝗬𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏s, and like I say, it's his job that's on the line as well.
Yeah,
So
I suppose the only thing I'd look at it is with the players we've sat. Some of the players, not all, but I don't want to single anybody out, but I am. But Johnny Wallace is an example where, Rhys Butterworth is another example who's been announced this week that he's signing for Sheffield Eagles in the Championship. Yeah. We're bringing players in when some people will look at it and go, do we even need to bring them in the first place? But if 𝗬𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏s has got somebody who's prepared to sign the cheque, well, as a head coach, why would you not bring them in?
Absolutely. And we're coming to the end of the season, which the next step is the pre-season. And some of these players, I think Willie's big on pre-seasons. And if some of these players knuckle down and really give him a big pre-season, he'd be a happy chappy.
Oh, yeah. He's not doing it. Yeah, I'm not saying he's doing it deliberately at any point whatsoever, because I genuinely think he does want... Do you know what? He wants the best player to play for him.
Absolutely.
So the challenge is then to everybody else, isn't it, to step up to his expectations and standards?
And it's his job on the line again. I'll repeat that. We had Tony Smith. Everybody said what a great fellow Tony Smith was. Well, Tony Smith's out of work now. So there you go.
Yeah. Right. Steve, we've got Leigh Leopards up on Friday. We've got lots to talk about that game. We pre-recorded Robins Remembered last week, didn't we? And I know you're on the Robin pod now, but I'm going to play it, and it's Arthur Bunting. So let's hear more about him. Steve, it's great to have you back on the Robin pod. Who have you got for us in this week's Robins Remembered?
Well, last week when we spoke about Harry Poole being a West Yorkshire lad, and you suggested that he was one of many West Yorkshire players that came over and made a name for Rovers. And another one of those was played scrum half for Rovers and was in many a team alongside Harry, and that was Arthur Bunting. Sorry, can we start that again, mate? The post came through the door.
Oh, don't worry. Carry on, Steve.
Okay. Another player was who came through the West Yorkshire nursery, if you like, was Arthur Bunting. Arthur was born in Ackworth, which is very close to Pontefract, and he played his junior rugby league in the Pontefract, Castleford area. Rovers signed him in 1959, and he became heritage number 647. Arthur Bunting was a good scrum half. Many people considered him one of the best scrum halves never to play for Great Britain. He played 231 times for Rovers, 6 as a substitute. He scored 68 tries and kicked 1 goal, so 206 points. He was a good wily scrum half. He had a good relationship with the hookers at the time, mainly Peter Flanagan, in the days when there were contested scrums. And Arthur knew how to feed the ball for Flash to strike and win the ball. But he played at Wembley. He was the guy who gave Alan Burwell the final pass before Burwell went on his arcing run and scored that fantastic Wembley try. And it was red and white through and through, or so we thought. He coached Rovers from 1972 to 1975. After he'd retired, Johnny Whiteley had been the coach in the 2 years previously, but Johnny Whiteley had a dispute with the directors. And I think part of that dispute was that at the time, Rovers directors picked the team. They'd have a meeting on a Thursday night and pick the team. And Arthur Whiteley said, no, I should be picking the team. I'm the coach. I know how to get the best out of the players. And it ended up in a bit of an acrimonious situation. So Whiteley left and Arthur Bunting took over. And Arthur would only take over on the basis he could pick the team. So that's when things changed at Craven Park in that respect. He coached us to a Yorkshire Cup victory, but he also coached us when we were relegated in '74. We then, on being relegated, we signed 3 players for very little money, in fact. We signed Clive Sullivan, Bernard Watson and Neil Fox. And those 3 legends of the game at the time helped bring us straight back up into the first division. And we went on from there, but Arthur was the coach leading to Harry Poole, and it was a real red and white. But then he went to the dark side and coached Hull, and he was coach of Hull FC when Rovers beat them at Wembley. But as a coach with Hull, he went on and won several championships. But it was as a player, Rovers fans remember him the most.
Yeah, I was going to say, Steve, he's not the first player, is he, to be involved with both sides and to achieve success on both sides of the river as well.
Yeah, he did it as a coach rather than a player. But yeah, Hull fans remember him as a legend because he took them to so many trophies. But it was as a player in that 1960s, early 70s team that Arthur excelled. And another goodbye from West Yorkshire.
Steve, it's still a concept that I struggle with, where you have a selection committee to pick a team, especially when you've got a head coach in place. But what I was going to say is, it's interesting if you've listened to Willie Peters this season about picking players and how he picks a team. He talks about how he doesn't pick it solely. He refers to his assistant coaches, Danny Ward, Brett Delaney, Dave Hodgson. He might even speak to the senior leadership team he's got in place. So I suppose it's not, the concept isn't new, is it? But I just find it, baffling that, normally, if you use football analogy, the manager picks the team. That is it.
Yeah.
Whereas,
but what you've got to remember, we're talking a board of directors. None of them would have played the game. You're talking to publicans. You're talking to people who, one Rovers director owned a scrapyard. Another Rovers director was a builder. Another one owned a host of working men's clubs. Those were the people that were picking the team. With Willie Peters, he's talking to some brilliant coaches.
Yeah.
But prior to Arthur Bunting coming to Rovers or Whiteley and Bunting, you had those people picking the team. And if a player upset a director, and I can think of at least one occasion where one player did upset a director. Well, in fact, there was one of Rovers' directors was the Yorkshire County on the Yorkshire County committee, and one of Rovers' players never ever got picked for Yorkshire because this person was on the Yorkshire committee that picked the Yorkshire team. So, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think Danny Ward and company have a bit more experience than some of those guys have.
Yeah. I suppose, Steve, I know a lot of people look back at the past with rose-tinted spectacles, but it wasn't always the best, was it?
No.
Let's come back to the present day, though, Steve. We've got Leigh Leopards up next. A tough game. Leigh Leopards, they've only lost one of the last 10 games. The 6th in the playoff, in the table, which, of course, puts them in the playoffs. They're only 1 point above Leeds. Leeds look like they've maybe got the act together. It's a huge game for them, but as Willie Peters has quite rightly said, it's a huge game for Hull Kingston Rovers. You've got Warrington now breathing down our necks. They've got a couple of easy games come towards the end of the season. There's still every chance that the Robins could get that League Leaders Shield if Leeds are resurgent, if they need that win to get into the playoffs. It's just a big game all round on Friday against Leigh.
Right. Well, first of all, let's mention Leeds. Leeds are playing Wigan. I fancy Wigan. Leeds get beat by Wigan. I think that's it for Leeds. Right. That's them out of the way.
Yeah.
But with regards to Leigh, yes, they've had a magnificent run. But I believe we are a top two team. There's only Wigan that can match us at the moment. And people are saying, oh, we've had some hard games. Every game's going to be hard. Every game's going to be tough. Every game you've got to train for, and we're playing a Leigh team that have got some good players. They've got some very good players. But a couple of weeks ago, they beat Warrington. Warrington had 12 men. They had Paul Vaughan got a red card, I think, after about 10, 12 minutes. So for the majority of the game, Warrington, I'd back us to beat Warrington tomorrow. Okay, in the same way as I'm going to back us to beat Leigh on Friday. I think if we put the same commitment that we put in against Warrington when we played them, when everybody was saying it was going to be a tough game, if we put the same commitment in as we put in against Wigan, and then in between we had St Helens and Cass, didn't we? We had a tough period of games coming up. This is the last game of that tough period as far as I'm concerned. And I would be very surprised, all things being equal, if we don't come away with the 2 points we need to get into second spot.
Yeah, I mean, Jai Whitbread, he's missing, of course. He's got that 1 game suspension after the yellow card against Wigan. Some rumours circulating that Jesse Sue potentially could be injured for that game as well. I mean, we are well covered in that prop position, aren't we? But if you take Whitbread and Sue, who are normally the frontline props, starting props, and fingers crossed, we're not missing Sue. But is that one prop too many? Do you think, or do you think we've got?
I don't think we'll be missing Sue. I think we'd have heard if Sue was definitely not going to be playing. but you know, it's a squad.
Yeah,
It's a squad, and we go in there. They've got a good prop. They've got a loose forward who was. It was people thought he should have got a 1-match suspension for being sin-binned last week, but I think those players are. I don't think those players are as good as any of our players. You know, the key player is the hooker. If they play their hooker,
𝗕𝗂𝗡𝗴𝗏.
𝗕𝗂𝗡𝗏𝗏. If he plays, he's more dangerous in my eyes than the others put together. And they've got the 𝗪𝗂𝗡𝗏𝗏, is it? O'Donnell, yeah. They've got 𝗪𝗂𝗏𝗏 who's playing well. But I watched quite a bit of the Castleford match, Lee versus Castleford match. And Castleford stood off Lee almost all the game. Lee were getting up to the Castleford line pretty easily, and Cass were being typical Cass. That's not going to happen on Friday night. I believe Rovers are going to, try and strangle the Lee attack down at their end of the pitch.
Yeah. To be fair, Steve, to Lee, what they've got is their best, or most of their best players fit now. At the start of the season, they didn't have them fit, and it'd be interesting to see where they would be in the league table if they didn't start off with such a horrendous injury record. What I do think, and it's obvious to say, because I said it last week when we played Wigan, we'll probably say it every game, Lee seem like a team that if you give them a sniff, they'll chomp at it and they'll go for it. And that's up to Rovers to... But I don't think Rovers, like you said, Steve, Rovers shouldn't give them a sniff, because I think they're that good, or they've been that good, that they'll feel comfortable going to Lee and playing their game.
Let me ask you, had Lee played Wigan last week, do you think Lee would have finished within 4 points of Wigan? I don't.
Well, of course not.
History's proved it this season.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got to do. Look, the players need a break. All players need a break at this time of year. We win the next 2 matches. In fact, I think if we win the next match, we're going to get a break. So we've got 2 matches now where we've got to put it together like we did against Warrington, like we did against Wigan, full on. Although I would say Lee's the most vital of that. And then we get a break. And I think that's what the players will be looking forward to. I think they'd be willing to get it together in the way they did against Warrington, in the way they did against Wigan, to enable them to get that break in 2 weeks' time.
It's funny you say that, Steve, because I'd say the opposite of you. I'd say that when they're in this when it's this stage of the season, that they want to keep playing. They don't want to.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm on about players. Look, I think it's a proven
resting the bodies, getting them. Yeah.
23 out of the last 25 grand finals, I think the sides that have won it have finished in the top 2.
Yeah.
And all those teams that have finished in the top 2 have had that break. They've had the break after the season ends proper, the league season ends, and they've had that break going into a semi-final of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I think, you can have your opinion, but I think...
No, I think, Steve, you're a betting man, though. So if you come with stats like that, I'm going to trust you more than my opinion.
But it's a fact, 100%. There's only I think Leeds come out of the pack to win a grand final. Other than that, as I say,
that was a freak result. That one though, wasn't it? That when you look back, that was a freak.
I can speak by knowing a few Leeds supporters. They believe that they can do that again with this team that they've got. Sorry.
Yeah.
Dream on, lads.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was listening to the Lot Pod, which I enjoyed, the Leeds podcast, and you thought they'd won the World Cup, the FA Cup, and the Super Bowl by beating Hull 68-0.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, if you've got friends who are Hull FC fans, if you think that lot are delusional, you want to listen to the Lot Pod, because I think sometimes that you think Brad Arthur's the messiah of you know, and you look at his record, it actually isn't that great in terms of what he's done since he's come in. But we're going to finish now, Steve. We've got the last segment of the Robin Pod, which is question time. Right, first question, Steve, and I'll throw it over to you. With Myler and Pearson combination now firmly established as the envy of all of Super League, what round does the pod reckon it'll be when they inevitably deploy their Midas touch to jointly sack John Cartwright live on Sky Sports? I think that's quite a fairly tongue-in-cheek question.
Yeah, I'm not bothered.
Yeah, you know what, mate? I saw. It's funny because I've mentioned before. I work with a lot of Hull FC fans, and I've said to them, "Do you know what? I've stopped bothering about the bottom of the league, Championship, them teams now. I'm fairly, unless we're talking about Rovers, Wigan, St Helens, Warrington. I very rarely cast an eye down that far low."
I'm looking at Salford to put a big number on them this week because I'd like to see Salford remain in the 6, and the points difference. I'd like to see them put a number on them, and if they do put a number on them, then it doesn't matter whether London win another match, because I'll tell you what, that points difference is narrowing.
All I'll say, I think Salford have already put 50 past them at home this season, and I won't be surprised if they do it again.
Did they put 50 past them? I know it was close at Salford, the match at Salford. Was
anyway, the next question, Don Kirby, do you think the problem of players going down to get a player sent off needs to be addressed next year? And of course, we saw that in the Robins game against Wigan, didn't we? People crying for the green card and stuff. Actually, the Wigan players who did go down wouldn't have been able to get a green card anyway because of the rules of rugby league, where the attacking player doesn't get the green card. It's only for a defending player. But, Steve, there is a big question mark, isn't there, around the players, around play acting and trying to milk things.
There's a simple answer. There's two answers. Do what they do in rugby union, where they carry on playing and there's a message gone to the referee, we're looking at this, and the referee can say to the captain of each team as players going on, listen, the whatever they call him, television match officials looking at this. Or the other one is dead simple. Put them on report. Just put every incident on report. Get on with the game. I'm sick of watching rugby league matches where the referee stops play and it can take up to 5 minutes. That's not what we want to watch. If we wanted to watch a 5-minute break, then we'd watch rugby union every week, wouldn't we, while they had a scrum and a penalty. What they've got to do, in my opinion, is just put it on report and say, let's get on with the game, lads. And it'll stop players laying down if they're not injured, because there's no reason for them to lay down.
Well, exactly. And I think I've seen, Steve, people have been saying, well, the players need to take great responsibility. I tell you what, any solution which involves the players doing something that they don't have to do will fail, because the players will exploit every opportunity that they can to get an advantage. And why should they? Because they're playing to the rules. So I think the one thing that I'd say on this is that people need to start looking at the players, because the rules allow them to do what they need to do. Yeah, and
just put it on report, and then it can be looked at. And the referee just says, right, I put it on report, lads. Get up and let's carry on playing the game. And
I do wonder though, if the rule change around the green card, if they made it attacking players had to go off as well, whether that would change something.
We've got more cards. It's like a bingo hall, isn't it? Sometimes.
Well, Willie Peters has already alluded to it, hasn't it? He said at the start of the season there was bans, there was a middle part, and now we seem to be banning more players than we did, or we've gone back to we did at the start of the season, which for him is a bit disconcerting, especially when you're talking about playoffs and all stuff like that. You don't want players missing. Next question. This is from Grumpy Arse on X. With the Roosters sniffing around course, Sydney around for a hooker, and the odd decision with Lytton last week. Are there any rumours floating around? Looks like Peter's cuts the playing time of players on the move, or maybe it's just a coincidence. I suppose the elephant in the room is, Steve, Jez Lytton was on the pitch for 13 minutes against Wigan. He brought him back on. That coincided with a 𝗬𝗎𝗂𝗏 yellow card, of course. But then he got hooked and 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 came back on. Normally, they sort of dovetail, don't they, where 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 starts, plays the majority minutes, and then Jez Lytton comes on for the chaos and exploiting the slow defence and stuff. I don't think there's anything in Sydney or anything like that, but it was interesting to see how Jez Lytton was used against Wigan.
Yeah, but he was used in that way. Was it against Leeds? Did he score that last try against Leeds? He only played for about 15 minutes.
But he played, that was at the back end of it. He stayed on, didn't he, to the end, whereas Jez Lytton against Wigan...
I don't see anything untoward. Willie Peters is utilising him as he is. And
so does Shaun Wane.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and I haven't seen Jez moaning about it. Jez has been very positive about it when he's been interviewed. Yeah. So I don't think there's anything in that at all. I think Jez is pretty happy. He's got a good contract, and and as far as Australia is concerned, I just don't see it.
Not yet. I think he's still got a lot left to give Rovers. Yeah, so I think there's the last question, and Dan Crafton, and these are the type of questions that I really want, to be honest. So if you're listening and you're watching, send more of these in. He asked, what do you think about the disruption caused by the temporary lights in Old Town? I mean, obviously it's harming businesses, isn't it? Local businesses, and a lot of people will now be hampered being able to go to Dixon's. So it's going to be difficult for them. But if we're going to make progress, Steve, I suppose digging up the roads is what we need.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Right, we'll leave it on that note. Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure. So thankful that you stepped in at the last minute. It's been a great Robin pod. Hopefully the next time we talk, we're discussing a Rovers victory at Leigh. And of course, we've got Robin's Remembered next week. You've got another great Rovers player lined up for us. So we look forward to that. This has been the Robin Pod Weekly, which is, of course, powered by Budget Ties Auto Centre, the only car specialist trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. For now, live, love, laugh and be happy.